Yep, a little harshly. Okay, Larry Miller declined our request for an interview, but he did put out a press release apologizing for going too far in his comments. He said, "Yesterday I made comments on a radio show that I recognized were inappropriate. I stand by my view that anyone being sworn in as a new citizen of our country must uncover their face. However, I apologize for and retract my comments that went well beyond this." Amir Al-Gawabi is Human Rights Coordinator with the National Council of Canadian Muslims. We'll get her reaction right now. Well, welcome to the program again. Nice to have you with us. All right, when you saw those comments this morning, when you read them this morning from Larry Miller, what went through your mind?
Well, completely aghast that, an elected leader is going to make those sorts of comments that are extremely disturbing. They're anti-immigrant, they're anti-Canadian, in fact, I should say. This is not what Canada stands for. Certainly you have your personal views about the niqab. It's not a popular issue. That being said, I think that particularly our political leaders have to weigh their words very carefully. We don't want to create a climate in which people may be open up to anti-Muslim sentiment, discrimination, any kind of harassment, and this is what this sort of comment might open the door for.
Do you think the Muslim community will accept the apology, or do you think that was just forced by his political masters?
Well, I think it's a good thing that Mr. Miller has apologized. I think that was certainly the responsible thing to do. That being said, I certainly think there's a lot of concern that is still out there amongst Canadian Muslims as well as fellow Canadians of all backgrounds as to really where is this whole discourse going. I mean, we have a lot of really important issues that Canadians want to hear their elected officials talking about in the lead up to an election. We've got the economy, we've got climate, jobs, etc. Why is there so much attention still being paid to the wardrobe decision of a very small minority of women? It also speaks right to the heart of our democracy, which, our values include freedom of choice, freedom of religion, freedom of expression. So again, I'm not really sure why the leaders keep bringing this up. Why do they keep sort of kind of fanning the flames with this kind of rhetoric? It's really quite disturbing.
I have to tell you, though, this Conservative MP, they call him the keeper of the flame because he's seen as a person who speaks no nonsense, straight from the heart kind of thing. And some people say he has Harper's ear when it comes to listening to, like, rural caucus and stuff. It must, double down the concern when you say this is what he's saying. I mean, that's a straight from the street kind of sentiment. Do you worry that the Muslim community has to deal with a perception, or in this case, misperception, that somehow Muslim women are coming over here before they're Canadians, this is what he said, and then trying to change our culture? Do you find that's a hard perception to shake?
Well, I understand that there are misconceptions about Muslim women's choice of dress. I understand also, for example, in rural communities, there may not be as many Canadian Muslim families living there. So certainly when people are getting information about Muslim women, they're getting it primarily from the news and from these sorts of comments, which actually really reinforces why our elected leaders have to be careful in how they word things. For example, women who do wear the niqab, and again, they're a very few minority, but they themselves say, we know that there's misconceptions and misunderstandings around this. We'd like to talk, we'd like to dialogue, explain why this is a religious practice that we want to practice here in Canada. And actually, for example, many of the women who decide to wear the niqab actually do so after having lived in Canada for some time, because they appreciate the sort of pluralistic society where people really just let each other live and let live is the best attitude to describe it.
Well, I don't know how far you've surveyed this, but how many women wearing the niqab do so voluntarily, and so how many would do it because they feel it's forced upon them? Well,
that's a good question, and actually it has been surveyed. The Canadian Council of Muslim Women spoke to about 80 women who wear a niqab here in Ontario, and not one single woman said that she was coerced, and all of them said they'd made the decision here in Canada out of a sincere religious belief, just that they wanted to practice their faith. That's how they felt closer to their faith. So, I don't wear the niqab. It's not something I, for example, believe is intrinsic to my practice, but it's just not my place, or I think anyone's place or the state's place, to be dictating what women should and should not be wearing.
Just one final question. Forum Research put out a poll that said that 2/3 of Canadians oppose allowing women to wear face-covering niqabs during citizenship ceremonies. What do you say to those people to try and change their minds from 67% against that to maybe 67% in favor of it?
Well, I think that I would just say, to fellow Canadians, let's go back to what this country stands for. We have a liberal democracy which guarantees everybody's freedom of expression, freedom of religion, even if you're offended by someone's choice, as long as they're not harming you in any way. These women do show their faces for security identification purposes, so there's really no harm to anyone at all. And our Supreme Court of Canada has said that as long as someone has a sincerely held religious belief in this country of ours, that they have a right to practice as they see fit. So this is as Canadian as it gets.
Okay. Amira, thanks for coming in again. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Don.